One forgotten Christmas tradition is the appointment of the Lord of Misrule during the Middle Ages. He was not just employed as a Christmas event organizer who got people cheerful and drunk, but he also became the temporary mock king of the court with his own retinue, and he became the star in many Christmas events. The fall of this Christmas king came soon after his golden age. Let's follow his Christmas mischief through the ages. Welcome to History Tower. Origin of the Christmas King tradition. The December King tradition can be traced back to the ancient Roman December festival Saturnalia, with the appointment of the King of Saturnalia. This tradition reappeared in the French royal court as Christmas bean kings with a cake game. Whoever found a bean in his slice of Christmas cake would become the Christmas king. The English royal court took a liking to that as Edward II and his son Edward III included this cake king tradition in their Christmas celebrations during the 14th century. Before this tradition was about to be forgotten, it was picked up by public schools and the colleges of Oxford and Cambridge in the 15th century. The first Tudor king, Henry VII, loved this tradition and employed a Lord of Misrule and an abbot of unreason for almost every Christmas. His infamous son, Henry VIII, continued this tradition with glamorous Christmas feasts, with the Lord of Misrule among hundreds of party guests at the banquets, pageants and dances up until 1535 or 1536. The Lord of Misrule was dressed to stand out with ribbons and lace, bells, jewels, gold and silver. Interruption. The historian Dr. Suzannah Lipscomb has called the year 1536 the Annus Horribilis of Henry VIII, as it was a year of horror and tragedies at court, when the king, for instance, had his second wife, Anne Boleyn, beheaded on trumped-up charges in May, then immediately married her servant and lost his only son, Henry Fitzroy, in July, followed by a widespread civil protest in autumn, among other events. It had been that year or the year before when he stopped the Christmas King tradition. The Lord of Misrule reappeared during the reign of Henry VIII's son Edward in 1551 and disappeared from the Tudor court after Edward's death in the summer of 1553. Golden Age of the Lord of Misrule. Edward's reign marked the golden age of the Lord of Misrule. The court stepped up the glamour, special events and cheerful spirits for the reign of their Christmas prince. After the king or his council had appointed the Lord of Misrule, the master of revels was informed as they would work together. The Master of Revels was the supervisor of the production and financing of the court events. He, for instance, directed feasts, pageants, masquerades and mock combats for the Christmas celebrations. Together they would create elaborate and never-before-seen Christmas events. A courtier with the name George Ferrers was appointed as the Lord of Misrule in 1551. He performed so well that he wasn't just rewarded with a generous payment for his service, but he became appointed for the next Christmas season again, only to be rewarded even more generously with the granting of an estate at Flamstead in Hertfordshire. His Christmas entertainments would have been incredibly impressive, as even the few surviving reports show. As Edward VI spent his Christmases at Greenwich Palace in London, George Ferrers entered the royal court under a canopy, probably imitating the royal canopy of a state. He presided over a drunken masquerade ball, a mock combat, a Greek mask and masks of apes, bagpipes, cats, and masks of figures that were half human, half deaf. Apart from pageants, there was also a mock Midsummer Night Festival with a mock joust that required hobby horses. The highlight was probably the Lord of Misrule's pageant in London in January 1552. It was a parody of traditional royal entries as elaborate and glamorous processions with a large retinue. The Lord of Misrule landed with a barge at Tower Wharf with a large retinue of knights and courtiers on horseback, councillors, courtiers, and fools. Their procession through the city of London showed everyone in precious garments as they were accompanied by musicians, dancers, and jugglers. After reaching Cheapside, a proclamation was made on a scaffold about the Christmas King before the symbolic beheading of a hogshead of wine to refresh everyone with a drink. Afterwards, the Lord of Misrule was accompanied by the Lord of Mayor at a feast, then visited the Lord Treasurer at Austin Friars, before returning by barge from Tower Wharf back to Greenwich Palace, where the royal court resided during the Christmas season. On Twelfth Night, a tourney, a play, a mock combat, a mask, and a banquet of 120 dishes completed the Christmas ceremony. George Ferrers used his experience as the Lord of Misrule for the next Christmas entertainments, impressing the court with elaborate events full of glamour and fun. The 12th night of 1553 ended after a procession play of Roman gods. This was the last time that the Lord of Misrule presided over elaborate Christmas events, as his employer, the Boy King of England, would soon become seriously ill. Fall of the Lord of Misrule. Before Edward's young death in the summer of 1553, he had appointed his first cousin once removed, the 16-year-old Jane Grey, as his successor. Jane Grey was beheaded after Edward's half-sister Mary took the throne. Mary never employed a Christmas king, but assigned the master of revels to prepare the Christmas celebrations instead. Her successor and half-sister Elizabeth had only appointed someone as Christmas prince once, in 1561, her favorite Robert Dudley, to rule with pomp, glamour and ceremony from Christmas Eve to Twelfth Night. The Lord of Misrule was popular in the century of Elizabeth's death in public schools, universities and inns of court in London during the 17th century. One Lord of Misrule even had to be arrested in 1628 for extorting civilians for money. During that time, pranks, excessive drinking and wild behavior were common for the Lord of Misrule. The Stuart King Charles I still employed a Lord of Misrule for his nephew's Christmas celebrations in 1635, but the tradition subsided with King James II. Disappearance of the Lord of Misrule. Even until the 19th century, the cake games with hidden peas, beans, rings or thimbles to elect a Christmas king or a king and a queen were a common tradition in private gatherings. The Lord of Misrule had finally vanished from the Christmas feasts of the Victorian age.